Yeah.
When it comes to the tight end position now, Tyler, obviously that's another one as well. And tight end, like I talked about, we saw Travis Kelsey. He's kind of been the spearhead of this thing for the last several years. And now he's starting to regress. We saw a little bit of the changing of the guard last year. Sam Laporta ended up being the tight end one. We saw strong finishes from Dalton Kincaid and from Trey McBride. Now, how are you feeling about tight end this year? Because you got to start to think about tight end in the back end of the third round, top of the fourth round in 12-team leagues. That's about where they start getting reached on. ADP, depending on your thing, is a little bit depending on your league, where your sleeper or your Yahoo or your ESPN, wherever you're at, is a little higher, lower on both. But where are you starting to look at tight end? Because it can be said that there's a lot of value in tight end as well this year.
So I typically don't go with like the tight ends that are going in the third. I don't like to go with Sam Laporta or Travis Kelsey. Now sometimes they do fall into the fourth, which I don't mind taking them there. But I also don't mind. It depends on how like I'm building out my team, but I don't mind the elite tight ends. Whether it be like Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, like my guy this year, and I know a lot of people don't like this, but I really think that this year can be different for Kyle Pitts. I was not in on Kyle Pitts last year where he was currently going, but I do think this year with the current quarterback situation, with this offense, this can actually be the year that we truly see him break out. So, and he's usually going the latest out of those guys, like your Mark Andrews and those kind of guys. So I like snagging one of them early. Now, if I miss out, if Brandon Ayuk does get traded, even if he doesn't, I don't mind George Kittle as well. But like if he does get traded, I mean, George Kittle should be right up there with him. And then with last year, I mean, over the past 2 years, we've really seen Evan Ingram be a solid option at the tight end position too, because like Doug Peterson's system has just been very tight end friendly. And I think that Evan Ingram is a pretty good tight end. Like, I like him as well. Now, if I miss out on those guys, like I do like personally going with an elite guy that I really do think could be a top 3 tight end, maybe even tight end 1. Like I really do think Kyle Pitts has potential. Does he actually reach it? I don't know. But I really do think that he could be the top tight end in fantasy football. If I miss out on them, then I usually go with like Dallas Goedert. I think he's a good value, or even like Pat Freiermuth. Now if Debo does go to the Steelers, I would not, or if Ayuk, I would not be in on Pat Freiermuth. But right now, that's kind of like the last range of tight ends that I like to take. Is those 2 guys. If I miss out on them, then I'm just absolutely punting the position. But I think that like we're starting to see elite tight, like this is the wave of new elite tight ends that I think will be staples of fantasy football for a while. And there's like some of these guys are really, really good. So for me personally, I like to lock up an elite guy, a guy who could be a true difference maker, because I hate some years where you're just playing the waivers and you're trying to find a guy and sometimes it doesn't work out. So I don't like that. I like to just shore up one that I feel good about.
I feel like every other year we get that where it's like one year there's just strong tight end play across the board.
Yeah.
We're getting like Taysom Hill going off for 20 points and random tight ends. And then there's other years where we're like, can we just get one guy to get us over 10?
Yeah.
But this year, I think at the early part of the draft, right? When you talk about your Laporta, your Kelsey, your Kincaid, your Mark Andrews, your Kittles, the one thing that I would say is that out of those 5, there's not really a case for a guy that's just going to completely destroy their ADP. Just based on the situation, right? Like you got Harrison there with Trey McBride, who had a nice breakout last year. Obviously, Lamar is the main focal point there with the Ravens. And we know Derrick Henry's going to take a lot of the red zone work. Talk about Laporta, it's going to be a very similar type season because Amon-Ra St. Brown is the one, and they're expecting a bigger role for Jameson Williams. So I can really go across the board with the top 5 picks. And I would say outside of Dalton Kincaid and Kyle Pitts, there's not really a major leap for anybody that's being drafted in the top 5 right now. So I struggle with, hey, I think I could find a receiver that I like that could take a really big leap in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, or maybe a running back that's being really undervalued. I struggle with taking a tight end at that same spot. So what I've found with early tight ends that I end up fading them. And it's not by, I was big on Trey McBride last year before the breakout. I was big on Laporta in the preseason last year. And I've always been a Travis Kelsey guy. And that's maybe the one that I would take in round 4. Travis Kelsey, because he's a staple, because we know if Mahomes does lock in on him, he re-signed, obviously. If Mahomes locks in with them, we have a great player for the season. So it's tough for me to take tight ends, and that's the one I think I would take just on name value, tradability in your leagues. If you do trade, like he's the staple. If it comes down to out of that, I find myself taking a lot of like George Kittle, David Njoku, just old, tired names that are probably going to be somewhere around the top 5 or 7, no matter what happens, because of their reliability in the offense. And then when it comes to like deeper positions, now I'm starting to take flyers on names. You talked about Dallas Goedert. He's a forgotten name as well. But your Luke Musgraves, your Pat Fryermuth, your Noah Fant, guys that have been elite prospects in the past, or players that we depended on and thought could produce. Now I'm looking at those guys for their reception capabilities, especially Noah Fant. He's like a deep sleeper for me. Somebody I would take. He's probably going to be on waivers in most leagues, but I think that this is a guy that could be a top 15 tight end in this new Ryan Grubb system. So I think tight end's a position that is thoroughly stacked, and you don't need to take an early tight end. But if you're looking for reliability of the position, or maybe you only have 2 receiver league, like say you're in a 2 receiver league and not a 3 receiver league, then maybe I consider taking tight end a little bit earlier. But for now, I think rounds 3, rounds 4, it's a little too early for tight end unless you're getting a brand name like Kelsey to trade or to see if he hits.
Or Kyle Pitts, because he's tight end 1.
I'm not opposed to Kyle Pitts being.
Well, what I like about him too is we talk about tiers sometimes, and like he goes more like mid to later 5th round, and like the wide receivers drop off just a little bit for me, where I'm like, I do like taking him a lot, not only because I like him and I think that he can be good, but he's also going like the latest. So that's one
note for quarterbacks and tight ends. One note for quarterbacks and tight ends. This is a personal recommendation. I don't know if you feel the same way. Try not to take both early. If you're going to go early round, do not go early round quarterback and tight end, because your lineup will look thin.
One thing that I'll say is that if it is 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, I don't mind doing that. If it is 3 wide receivers, though, I don't like to do that. I don't like to go both, because it does leave you thin at wide receiver, especially if you go with a running back early. So it depends on how your settings are, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, that does it for our early round talking about breakouts and fades at the position, and also quarterbacks and tight end, a little strategy talk for you guys there. We will see you guys on the next episode. Peace out.